Hello, I'm Peaceful Nik the Medium. One of the most common questions I get as a medium is, what happens after we die? And at the time of this recording, we're just starting spooky season, and I thought this was a great time to talk about it. I have been a professional medium for about 6 years. I've done thousands and thousands of mediumship readings. I've read many, many books about mediumship, about near-death experiences, about life between lives. And I just want to talk about some of the things that I have learned and share them with you. So, what happens after we die? A little history for me. Before I became a medium, my biggest fear was death. And I had a friend, Krista Kay, who told me, she's a psychologist. And I asked her, what do I do? Because I'm so afraid of death. I was having panic attacks at night. And she said, learn more about it. That was about 20 years ago or more. And I was like, there's no way in heck I'm learning more about death. I don't want to know more about death. I don't want to experience death. I don't want anything to do with it. Then, many years later, I started having mediumship experiences. That wasn't on my bingo card. And I have now learned a lot about death. And so, what I have learned is incredible. It's calming. It brings me a sense of peace. I no longer fear death. I have had, I think, 1 or 2 panic attacks in the last 6 or 7 years since I became a medium, compared to 3 or 4 nights a week. Okay, so it has been incredible. Now, I will tell you that the mediumship journey has changed my life in so many ways, including the loss of fear of death. So I want to welcome everyone in. If you enjoy this type of content, please like, share, and subscribe. Subscribing is free. If you want to become a member and get member perks for my channel, there are different tiers of membership. You may explore that as well. But I appreciate every subscription, every member, every view on my videos. So I appreciate everyone, no matter how you show up. I'm just so happy you're here. So let's get into it. I got to have my mediumship fuel. So I want to explore this big question. Now, those of you who know me know that I'm also a scientist. And one of the problems in science, they actually call consciousness and what happens after we die the big problem, because they can't explain where consciousness resides in our brain. They can't find it. So they've been studying neuroscience and brain science for, over 100 years, maybe 150 years, but more in modern times, like very specifically for decades. They can't find consciousness. They can't explain consciousness. Scientists I'm talking about. And they literally call it the big problem. So just keep that in mind. Science can't explain it, but mediums can. Mediums can. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Every culture, every time period, every walk of life has some story about what happens after we die. Think of the Egyptians. Their whole culture, ancient Egyptians, their whole culture was about death, right? Building the pyramids, if you believe that's what they were built for. We won't get into that right now. But the belief is those pyramids were built as tombs. Everything about their lifestyle was preparation for death. The Central American cultures, Native American cultures, Tibetan monks, like all of these cultures all across the world over time have all had a very, I guess, their own type of study or belief system around death. And that death is not the end. Physical death is not the end. Our consciousness, they may not have used those terms, but our essence moves on beyond this earthly realm. I have spent years connecting with spirit. I've done thousands and thousands of mediumship readings. I have a background in astronomy and biology, as many of you already know. I know through my study of science That energy cannot be created or destroyed. It's one of the laws of science. It either is transformed or annihilated. Now, at the time of our passing, our energy is not annihilated. That's a different story for a different day. Energy from our consciousness goes somewhere. And so I used to have this whole thing before I became a medium where I'd be like, oh my God, when I die, nothing's going to happen. That was my fear, that nothing happened when I died. Now I know that our awareness, our consciousness, our soul, however you define it for you, releases from our body and goes to the spirit world as I define it. Some people define it as heaven. Some people define it as home. However, whatever term you use, that is fine by me. Our consciousness leaves our body and goes. Now, this can also happen prior to passing. If you know someone with dementia, Alzheimer's, a coma, any neurological disease, your consciousness can come and go. And actually, your consciousness can leave your body at night when you're sleeping because it's free. Your body's asleep and it can come and go and do whatever it wants. If you have vivid dreams all the time, your consciousness is probably living another life in another realm or dimension. That's me. I'm tired all the time. I'm not a morning person, never have been. I wake up as if I have lived, 7 or 8 hours somewhere else because I constantly have vivid dreams as if I'm living a life in another dimension. So that's another story also. So our consciousness exists separately. We call that non-locality. Our consciousness is not local to our body. It's two separate things. Our body is one thing and our consciousness is another thing that inhabits our body while our body is alive and can come and go when it wants. And when your body no longer lives, the consciousness just whoop right out of the body and goes wherever it wants, really. So I want to bring some spiritual wisdom and some science wisdom that can help us make sense of this mystery we call death and the big problem of science. What is consciousness? So the most common questions I get around death in my readings is, do we still exist after the body dies? Unequivocal answer, yes. Now, while you're watching the video, please comment below, ask any questions you want to know, give me any life experiences you have to prove or disprove what I'm talking about. And just in general, give me the information you want to share about the subject. I appreciate it. Another question I get, what does it feel like to cross over? I get this question a lot in readings. People whose loved ones pass away from terrible accidents, horrific circumstances, sudden passings, or people who unalive themselves or accidentally unalive themselves. This is one of the most common questions. So our physical body has a way to shut down pain, right? It's called going into shock. That's one aspect. That's the scientific aspect. The spiritual aspect is, and you hear this a lot in near-death experiences, I've seen this in my readings, your soul just releases from your body and is observing everything going on below. Usually they say I went right up to the roof if they're inside a room, or if they're outside, I went right up into the sky. I could see everything that was happening. So the soul, again, is non-local. So it gets released from the body. Sometimes that even occurs prior to passing. If there's going to be an accident, your soul is like, all right, this is it. This is my exit point. And it just whoop, right out of the body. And can observe. So the soul feels no pain. You cannot harm a soul. A soul will not be in pain. These are my experiences. You may hear other people in other places say other things, and that's fine. That's their opinion. This is my experience. And I just want you to know your loved ones do not experience pain at their passing, even under tragic circumstances, because the soul is released from the body and the body shuts down, goes into shock, and shuts down. So the feeling is, and no one dies alone. Everyone, I get this question a lot too. What my loved one was alone when they had an accident, and I was worried that they were scared. As soon as you cross over, you are filled with so much peace and love. It is the most unconditional, beautiful peace you could ever imagine. So if you are a parent of a human baby or an animal baby, or you've ever been in love, when you bond with that baby, the pet, the person you're in love with, that feeling of overwhelming pure joy and love and unconditional love is how the spirit world feels times a billion, billion, billion. It is so pure and so wonderful that the soul is so at peace immediately and does get greeted by loved ones who passed before you, by guides, and you recognize them by the energy. And you know by the energy, it's all telepathic. You're not speaking in words, it's all telepathic. Um, you know, I'm sure you guys have heard, of telepathy. So it's mind to mind, soul to soul communication. So there is no sadness, fear, loneliness. There's none of that. It is pure love, pure peace. Um, it's bliss. So, do we see our loved ones again? Yes, we are greeted by our loved ones. We can even be greeted by people we may have had tumultuous relationships with. We've all had relationships in our life that weren't that great. And everyone in our life is in our life for a reason, good or bad or indifferent. Everyone is put in our path for a specific reason. We plan the things that are going to happen prior to them happening. It's kind of like because I was a teacher for 20 years, I explain it like an outline for an English paper. You have these bullet points, 1A, 1B, 1C. This is going to happen. This is going to happen. This is going to happen. Why do we plan these experiences? We plan these experiences to grow our soul, to become closer to God or source. The whole point of this life here on earth is to learn and grow to become closer to God or source. That is the point. And so the negative experiences, probably just as important as the positive ones, because you don't really grow from being in a state of euphoria all the time, right? We must experience challenges. Now, this was very hard for me to accept when I became a medium. So if this is like, you don't agree with this, that's perfectly fine. I had a real hard time with it myself. So when we grow our soul, we must do that through challenging experiences, sometimes negative experiences, sometimes bad experiences. All of this is to see how we deal with it. Do we grow from it? Do we change from it? Do we become better people from it? Or do we fall into the negativity? So a measure of growth of our soul is, are we learning from the problems we experienced? Are we learning and becoming better people? Do we still hold love in our heart? Or do we become part of the problem? So there's two ways you can go. And I saw something the other day that reminds me of this subject. You may hear this on social media or by psychologists. Hurt people hurt people. That's true. But I also saw this little added piece to it. Hurt people can heal and help others learn to heal. And that is also true. And I thought, oh, that's true, because I've been hurt and I'm not trying to hurt anybody. I want everyone to heal. I want everyone to feel better. I want to help guide people to their own healing process. So think about that when you see things like that. Hurt people, but we can heal and help others on their journey as well. So another question I get Oh, I don't know if I fully answered that. Do we see our loved ones in spirit again? Yes, we absolutely do. We recognize them instantaneously. Is there judgment or punishment on the other side? So many of you probably grew up with some type of religious background. Some have grown up with religious indoctrination that have told you you're going to hell. You're going to the devil sits on one shoulder and an angel sits on the other, and you have to listen to the angel. You may have heard that. If you pleasure yourself, you're going to go blind. If you lie, you're going to hell. Things like that, right? First of all, hell does not exist. Hell is a made up word, bastardized by people who wrote the Bible. If you look, Dan McClellan, follow him. He's on here. He has Data Over Dogma podcast. Is a wonderful video about how hell got misinterpreted from a real place that was on earth and reused and reused and reused until it became fire and brimstone in the middle of the earth. It's not a real spiritual place. That is a lie perpetrated by churches for control. Do not worry. If your loved one unalived themselves, this is another common question I get. Did they go to hell? No. Why would a merciful God, if you believe in that, punish someone who is already suffering so much that they felt like they had to take their life? They wouldn't be punished. That person is suffering to a degree that they are physically going to end their human life. Why would they be punished? Think about it. Think about it. It's not true. If you want, I will link below the video where Dan McClellan, I have it saved in my phone. That's how many times I get trolled on here. I can link that below in the comments if you want to watch the video of how hell was changed to something it was, to something it is not. So just let me know about that. So there's no judgment, there's no punishment. What does happen is you kind of have a life review where you feel the way you made others feel. So if you were a normal person who lived a regular life and just did the best you can under the circumstances you didn't try to do harm to anybody, you'll have a life review, and inevitably we hurt people, maybe not purposefully, but we do and say things that we may not intend to do harm, but sometimes we hurt people's feelings or cut somebody off in traffic or say something we didn't really mean. You'll feel those things, right? But it's not going to be some horrific event. Now, if you've been a person who did a lot of harm to people, you're going to feel the harm you caused that person and the ripple effect of the harm that person and that person and that person caused everybody else. So you will feel the feeling. So it's not a punishment. It's a review of, you know what, you need to do better in your next life. So it's not a punishment. It's just this is how you made people feel. You might want to think about it before you go back down to earth. So another question I get, I have some atheists in my family who believe in nothing, spiritual or God or anything like that. And what happens to those people doesn't matter. They still go to the spirit world. A fact is a fact no matter what you believe. So that's a quote from Neil deGrasse Tyson, famous astrophysicist. He has some great content if you're interested in astrophysics and astronomy. You don't have to believe in the spirit world to go to the spirit world. There is no punishment if you're in your human life, you decided not to believe in anything spiritual or godly or religious or anything like that. It doesn't matter. You're still a human with a soul. No matter what you believe, you are still a human with a soul. And maybe in this lifetime, you chose not to believe just because you chose not to believe for whatever reason to have that life experience. You may have had a life before, if you're a non-believer now, you may have had a life before where you were in some type of religious cult and you just wanted to avoid all of that this time. That's okay. That's okay. You still go to the spirit world. And again, there's no punishment. There's no punishment. And also, some of the best people I know don't have a belief system in anything spiritual or religious. You can still live a very beautiful, wonderful, loving, compassionate life and not have a belief system in a deity of any kind. So and I'm not judging anybody about anything like that. So what does spirit teach us? Oh, my whole life has changed so dramatically since becoming a medium. I mean, I can't even I could talk for hours, hours and hours and hours about this very subject. But I will keep it as brief as possible. Continue chatting below and commenting about any questions or comments that you have about this subject. So, from my experience as a medium, I know unequivocally consciousness continues. So science is trying to answer the big problem. They can't figure out consciousness, but I can tell you our consciousness continues. When our body stops working, and sometimes prior to it stopping working, your soul can be released from the body, just shifts. And often people describe it as, it's like I went from the living room to the kitchen. It wasn't a big, dramatic, painful experience. It was a simple, peaceful experience. Your soul just lifts right out of your body and crosses right over. And your soul can be in many places at once. It's not ever stuck. This makes me real irritated. There are mediums and healers, we'll say, who go out and charge people to get their loved one's souls unstuck. They'll charge them $500, $1,000, $5,000 because they tell them, oh, because your loved one unalived themselves or passed from an OD, their soul is stuck and they're stuck here on the earth plane. That is a lie. That is a lie. That is a lie. That doesn't happen. Nothing we do on this earth can make you stuck. Period. Never believe it. That is a very unethical person if they're telling you that. Period. Okay. So our consciousness continues. Nothing makes it stuck here. Our soul is so powerful, it can go anywhere in the universe. It can go to your mom's house. It can go to the Andromeda galaxy. It can go, to Alpha Centauri. It can go to China. It doesn't matter. It can go anywhere. Okay. Never worry. It is free to go and be in many places at once because your soul is made of quanta. Those are teeny tiny little energetic particles that can be in many places at once. Very powerful, our souls. We are always greeted with love, period. Always greeted with love. No matter what happened to you or what experiences you had or what you did in your life, you are greeted with love. We need love more than anything. And the whole spirit world is pure, unconditional love. It's not like that narcissistic parent, or your friend's narcissistic parent that gives you conditions on the love. It is the most pure love you've ever felt times a billion times a billion. There's no punishment, only perspective. There is no condemnation. Everything we experience in the spirit world in our life review is to help us grow, period. And spirits keep evolving. So our soul, the purpose of our soul is to be in an evolutionary state, to grow your soul to get closer to source or God. We are already part of the collective consciousness, but I see it as kind of like tentacles going into the main source in the middle. And each life experience, if you grow from your life experience, you kind of grow towards source. And the goal is to merge with source. So we keep evolving, we keep learning, and continuing our journey. And we may say, I have a friend who says, I'm not coming back to this world. This world is so hard. And, you know, and when we're in the middle of our life, we may feel that. But when we get to spirit, we find that, yeah, I do need to learn some other lessons, because soul, your spirit, is way more intelligent than your human mind. So let's bring in some science. Earlier, I mentioned energy cannot be created or destroyed, it only changes form. So in the universe, everything is recycled. Stars burn out. All the particles from the stars go out into the universe. They're all recycled to make new stars and planets and moons and asteroids. The same thing happens with our soul, right? Our soul is in one body, the body stops working, the soul goes out and comes back into a new body, maybe on another planet, right? Doesn't have to be Earth. Everything in the universe is recycled. Our consciousness, our soul, is also recycled. Now, what kind of personal experiences have I had as a medium to help prove life goes on beyond this earthly realm? I have had thousands and thousands of readings that I have performed with clients, and the information I get from spirit is incredible. I have some readings here on my YouTube channel, some live readings I've done. I don't publish private readings that I do with my clients because that's their private information. For example, a way to prove that our loved one goes on beyond this earthly realm. One example is I was doing a live reading and I could see a gentleman in a white suit. And the woman that I was connecting with here, the human woman, recognized that was her uncle, and on his obituary, the picture on his obituary, he was wearing a white suit, and that's the suit he always wore. Now, I would have no way of knowing that. I didn't know this person. She was a complete stranger. But that's a pretty, not everybody wears a white suit. It's not a very common type of suit to wear and then have it printed in your obituary. I've had a grandma come through in spirit. And she showed me all these piles of wedding tulle. That's the fabric you make wedding dresses out of. And I said, your grandma's here and she's showing me all these piles of wedding tulle. And the client said, oh, she was a seamstress and she made custom wedding dresses. That was her whole career. Now, another very specific, vivid example of there's no way I should know that, right? And so I could list hundreds or thousands of these pieces of evidence to show that we mediums connect to your loved ones in spirit and get sometimes very mundane but vivid and specific information to prove that your loved ones in spirit still exist and go beyond this earthly realm. Now, think about this. What do you think happens after we die? What do you feel? You can comment below. Let me know what your experiences are. Have you had any mediumship or spiritual experiences? Give me any updates or information that you would like to share with me. And if you have any questions and you want me to make a specific video about a specific subject, please let me know below. I want you to know that when our body dies, our energy shifts into another form. It is not destroyed. It's impossible to destroy the energy of our consciousness. The spirit world is pure love, and that is the love that carries us forward into eternity, really, because this universe may have a finite period of time that it will exist, but our souls will exist forever because there are multiple universes. In my opinion, I believe in the multiverse theory. So I feel like all of this is just recycled over and over and over and over for billions and billions and trillions of years. So don't fear that there is an end. Your consciousness continues. evolving and expanding just like the universe, the multiverse. This is not an ending. This is a continuation of the great cosmic cycle that we are all a part of. So, if you want to explore this more deeply, I have members only lives. We can discuss that. If you want to become a member, you can join my channel as a paid member. There are a variety of different choices for that. Subscribing, totally free. Feel free to subscribe. You can purchase any of these books. I have a link below, Mediumship 101 and How to Become Your Own Medium. I have digital formats and physical copies. Those will all be linked below. And thank you for spending this time with me. I hope you learned a lot. I will continue making content to help. Let me know if you have any ideas or questions you want me to answer. And I appreciate every subscription, every like, every membership, every view. I appreciate everyone. I'm sending you all love and peace and healing. Thank you all so much. I will see you in the next video.